Am I the asshole for asking for a new engagement ring? My 25 female, boyfriend, fiancé, 27 male, proposed to me the other day. We have talked about getting married before this happened, and I have told him exactly what kind of ring I wanted, down to the shape and band. When he proposed to me, the ring wasn't anything close to what we have previously talked about. I accepted the proposal, of course, but last night he brought up that his mother actually picked out the ring. He asked me what I thought about it, so I told him honestly what I thought and asked if we could get a different one. He got upset and told me I was being ungrateful and that I should be happy that he even got me a ring. He said that his mom was the one to pick it out, so I should just wear it. Today, his mom called me basically telling me that I have no taste in jewelry and that I should just go with what she says. I get that he spent a lot of money on this ring, but we have talked about what I wanted before, and I am going to be the one wearing this. Am I being ungrateful for asking for a new ring? Am I the asshole? Are you sure you want to marry this guy? He disregarded everything you wanted and just went with what his mom says is best. Then mom even calls you to tell you why you're wrong for wanting something different. The audacity. My guess is this will be a recurring pattern. Be prepared for his mom to be the one planning your wedding for you. And choosing your children's names. And how you'll raise them. Your fiancé needs to grow a spine and stands up for you and set some boundaries with dear old mom. Good luck. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. If he's already putting his mom ahead of you like this, you may want to just return it and move on. It's not just the ring you're stuck with, it's also his mom and living with how much he may side with her over you. Oh no op. Are you ready for a marriage of being told you should do things because his mom said? Why was she even involved in the ring selection at all? Not the asshole. Not the asshole. This isn't a ring issue. His mom picked it out and he told you to be grateful you got a ring and then she calls to talk shit about your taste? Come on. Why is this not the biggest red flag? When he doesn't like what you feel or think, his mom comes in to make it 2-on-1. How else is your life going to be dominated by this dynamic duo of dipshits? Screw the ring. Give it back until his mom isn't the adult in charge of your life. He's not ready to get married. Lol, not the asshole. Sounds like she picked it because she's going to be in this marriage too. I sense you have bigger problems than a ring. Not the asshole. I've always been of the opinion that the person that's supposed to wear the ring for the rest of their life should get a say in what it looks like. What makes this worse is that he knew the type that you'd want and instead of taking that into account he deferred to mommy and let her pick it. Am I the asshole for telling my daughter the real reason I don't allow her to refer to me as mom? Whilst I am unfamiliar with this app, my partner is far more active, so I've come to know this category. In recent events, perhaps 2 weeks ago, whilst touring across the country I was stuck driving for 8 hours and I was exhausted. However, my daughter, 15, popped the question as to why I don't allow her and her brother to address me as mom, like most would. Usually in this situation, not the first time she asked, I used the excuse of how it would be easier for her to find me if she ever got lost in a crowd and I would be able to find her easier, but this time she continued to push for the real answer as she is now grown. This was the same reason as why I spilt to her the real reason. For context, I have never wanted children. Being in my early 40s when I had her and her younger brother was a choice of my partner as I gave in and complied to the idea. I never held a deep affection for them at first, but as they grow I realize how much I truly love them. Continuing on, I told my daughter that I never wished to be a mother and I'd much rather not be tied down to the lifestyle of it. I didn't think much of this as I was tired and just wanted to arrive to our destination. I can't exactly recall the reaction she had. She only replied along the lines of, "So that's the real reason." I didn't believe that I might have been in the wrong for telling her when she was the one to push for the reason. However, later broke down after her dad joked about how he would be fine to allow her to call him dad. He was drinking that night. I admit, I did discuss I wanted him and I to be referred by our names rather than the titles of mum, etc. Before the birth of my daughter he was reluctant but allowed it. And my daughter came out saying how I have burdened her with my words and how she second guesses her position as my daughter. She began to spiral and overreact, asking why I would tell her that, if I love her, etc. Then began to say how she wants the intimacy of calling me mum and how she does not feel close to me. We have never had a problem of how she calls me by my name and I thought she would only ask simply due the curiosity of a growing person. She has yet to calm down and is still fairly tempered with me. It's been a few days and there remains a lot of tension whilst her father does not remember the events that took place being drunk, so I come here for judgment. I love my children and I make an effort to make sure it's clear to them. Am I the asshole? You are the asshole. I never wanted you. Only had you to keep my partner, and I may love you now but not enough to let you call me mum. How would you possibly not be the asshole for telling a teenager that? You are the asshole. You shouldn't have given in and had children if you feel like that, but since you did, you took on an obligation to ensure their well-being, physical and emotional. Not allowing them to call their parents mum and dad was cruel and bizarre. Telling your daughter that it is because you don't actually want to be a mum is absolutely shameful. Irredeemable. Oh, and 15 is not grown. You are the asshole. What the fuck is wrong with you? You just told her she was unloved and unwanted. Someday you will be one of those people whining about your children never calling you. You are the asshole. Alternative title. I told my child I never wanted them. Now they're sad. What did you think would happen? You are the asshole. Forcing your child to call you by your first name doesn't somehow make you not her mom. You're tied down to the lifestyle of it, whether you like it or not, pal. You are clearly How cold-hearted can you be to your own child? Again, you are the asshole. Am I the asshole for telling Sil our kids are more important than her destination wedding? My husband and I are foster to adopt parents. We have 2 children we adopted from foster care, and our oldest, but the second child to become our child, is 8 years old and has a lot of trauma built up. My husband comes from an almost identical background to our son. Right down to how he was treated for so many years. Our son has a very strong attachment to my husband and is only calmed by him when seriously distressed, which is every night without fail. He suffers night terrors due to his experiences in the system. My husband will often hold him until he can fall asleep, and he will stay with him and hold him after his night terrors. Without this, our son cannot settle again and he becomes inconsolable. He does love me, but does not get the same comfort from me. Because he knows his dad gets it and it helps him feel safe. Some time ago my husband had to leave for 3 days and our son was a mess by the time he got back. He actually had to leave early because he was meant to be gone a week. But my son couldn't function without him. Sil told us in December that her early September would be a destination wedding in another country. We could not afford to fly all 4 of us, and we communicated this to her. She expressed that she needed her brother to be there at least. My husband told her he would see what he could do. She said it gave us plenty of time for our son to be okay without him for just 4 nights. The 4 nights are because he would be flying for an entire day, and the wedding festivities are over a day and he wouldn't make it home quickly. We said we would see. But it hasn't happened. My son still needs his dad. He has made some progress. But it is delicate. And could be set back if he is pushed for too long too soon. My husband told his sister and she was mad. She said he couldn't keep putting the kids above all else, that we need to live our lives, especially him. He told her he couldn't risk our son's progress and that progress is slow, which it has been. She came to me and begged me to talk him around. She told me how badly she wants her brother there and how much she'll miss him. She said it's not her fault we didn't want to spend the money to all come. I told her it's not that we didn't want to, but we couldn't, because it was a lot of money for just one person even. She accused me of coddling our son too much. I asked her if she remembered what her brother went through when their parents adopted him. She said he was never like that and he hasn't been harmed by not being coddled the same way. I told her they are different people, but surely she knew it had caused trauma. She said her wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I told her that our kids are more important than her destination wedding. She did not take that well. Am I the asshole? ETA, because many people are commenting on why we are not getting him help. Our son has been under the care of a team of therapists and a psychiatrist since he arrived in our home. But progress will be very slow. They all acknowledge this. She said he couldn't keep putting the kids above all else. This is literally what you sign up for by having kids. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Sil is a bridezilla. You will probably still be hearing about how selfish your husband was for not putting a whole adult's petty wishes above the needs of a traumatized child for years to come. But it will have been worth it. Not the asshole. She chose a destination wedding. With that comes the inevitability that some close family and friends will not be able to make it. Not the asshole. Your kids are more important than a destination wedding. However, I'd let husband deal with his family from now on. All you're doing in your SIL's mind is making it so that her brother can't come to her wedding. Hearing it from her brother, rather than you might make her less hostile. Not the asshole. How can someone think that the well-being of a child should come after her wedding? Yes, I agree that your life needs to be more than just sacrifice for the children and that you shouldn't coddle your children all the time. But you are in a very particular situation, with a child that needs more than most child, and that isn't being entitled or acting like a king child. This child needs your attention, he needs your love, and you knew what you signed up for, and you are doing an amazing job at it. Not the asshole. Honestly, there are too many stories about how foster parents only take their real kids on trips, getting a babysitter for the foster kids. You are what foster families should be like: patient, compassionate, empathetic, understanding parents. Your kids are in fact more important than her wedding. Am I the asshole for demanding my husband to pay me for the AC that he sold behind my back? We, him 31 and I 32, live in a small apartment with our 2-year-old daughter. We're struggling financially and he hasn't been working since he broke his leg, which was 8 months ago. I'm the one bringing money in while saving for an AC because it's so hot where we live and fans weren't enough. I bought an AC 2 months ago, put it in the living room, and it made huge difference because the apartment was literally hot. My husband kept huffing about buying the AC, saying I wasted money and should have just kept using fans. He told me since I had no issue paying that much money for an unnecessary luxury, then I had to pay him to go on a trip with his friends. I declined because I didn't have the money he was asking for DVEN after he said he'd pay me back later if I wanted. Also said his friends wouldn't let him go if he didn't pay. I suggested he skip it since it's out of the country type of trip, and very costly. Not to mention the stuff he'd need from food and sleeping equipment since they planned to go out on the wilderness. He threw a fit and said he'd skipped 3 trips so far and his injury no longer stood in his way, so he wanted to go. I suggested he go borrow money from someone and he got offended. Days ago I discovered the AC was gone when I got back from work and freaked out. Turns out he sold it online and waited till I was away to remove it and take it. IHE tried giving me $100 to guilt me down, but I was seething. I yelled at him and he said he needed money, had nothing valuable left to sell, and thought the AC was not a necessity. Still, he offered to save and buy a new one once he starts working. I demanded him to pay me back immediately or I won't be staying in this place with these conditions. Even my daughter hates how hot it is in here. He started arguing about how unreasonable my stance is and I told him off. He got some of his friends contacting me convincing me to let him go on the trip, then we'll figure something out later, and that his mental health was more important, but I responded that if they cared so much about it then they shouldn't have expected him to pay to go with them. They stopped speaking to me. Now he's accusing me of ruining the trip and alienating his friends. Not the asshole. He threw a fit and said he'd skipped 3 trips so far and his injury no longer stood in his way. Then he should get a fucking job. AC isn't a luxury item FFS. For some people living in certain areas, it could make the difference between life and death. Your husband thinks only of himself and what he wants. He has no business having the titles of husband and father. What a disgrace. Not the asshole. But let's be honest here, you're taking care of 2 kids. If you can't afford to take care of both, it may be best to drop one. I would recommend dropping the one that's trying to gaslight you and make you feel like shit for buying an AC. OMG, not the asshole. This raises a million red flags. He doesn't care about your comfort. He doesn't think AC is a necessity and he doesn't care if you do. He was underhanded when he sold the AC. He thinks you were unreasonable. He gets his friends to gang up on you. He's accusing you of ruining the trip and alienating his friends. He's a thief who cares only about himself. Let him stay in your apartment while you go stay with a family member or friend with AC. I think this is divorce-worthy. Not the asshole. And #X200B. Divorce? Not the asshole. The AC was an investment in the comfort and well-being of the entire household, not a waste at all. And what he did was theft, plain and simple. I would have to think about throwing the whole man away if I were in your shoes, over the staggering selfishness and attempt to make you feel guilty about not financing an international camping trip when you're the only one working. If he's recovered enough for a wilderness trip, he's recovered enough to seek employment. Not the asshole. What the fuck, why isn't this guy working? If he can take a vacation out of the country, he can get a job and buy a replacement AC and pay for his own vacation. In fact, he should pay for OP and their daughter to take a vacation away from his slacker self.